60% of all small businesses fail within 3 years. So why is this? Well, there's a number of reasons. Firstly, it could be they just simply run out of cash, or it could be poor management, or even other issues like perhaps they're growing too quickly and they don't know where they're headed. But I've noticed lately that there's one thing that is happening around the globe, and that is that marketing and digital media are changing, and people aren't changing with it. And so with all these things happening, you might wonder, what can we do about it? Well, about 25 years ago, I came up with an idea. You see, when I was 22, I went into small business, and I was one of those statistics. I failed, and I failed before I was 23 years old. But I decided to keep going, and I wanted to stay in business, and I changed industries, and I worked until 1994 when I came up with this idea. And the idea was to partner a 20-something with industry experience. So you might think, why me and why this idea, and why is it relevant? Well, when I made that partnership in 1994, I didn't know how it was going to go, but right now, that business is still operating. So it's been operating now for 25 years, and the founder is still running a successful business. And I think back to myself, well, why couldn't I do that when I was 22 years old on my own? And I worked out that there are simply things that you just don't know. And there are so many aspects of business that you don't know about. So what I did after that, when I sold my business, is I partnered with more 20-somethings. And we partnered in different industries. And to date, I've partnered with 9 20-somethings. And in fact, 100% of those businesses are still successful. And we now employ over 200 people. So going back to my childhood, I have 6 sisters and 1 brother. And my earliest memories were of sitting in my grandparents' place. And I asked my mum, why were we at Grandma's place with the kids? And she said, well, funny thing, John, we used to live down in Sydney, and these men came into our house and they took away all the furniture. I said, why would they do that, Mum? Well, your father had gambled all the furniture away, and I just simply had had enough. So the strength of my mother to bundle all the children onto a train, bring us up to Queensland, was one of the first lessons in my life. Then we went through the growing up stages. So it was a tough time, you can imagine. You know, we're in housing commissioned houses, and we were poor. We simply didn't have a lot. And I learned to be very, very resourceful. In fact, I was so resourceful that I ended up in a lot of trouble with the law. And I mean a lot of trouble. See, I was on my way to jail, to juvenile jail, and my father stepped in. And my father cut a deal with a boarding school, and they accepted me. And boarding school was a magical place. For the first time ever, I got to taste what fresh bread was like, what butter tasted like, what milk was like. I loved it. It was like a summer camp. But there was a problem. I very, very quickly was expelled. So I went to this school that didn't like drinking, smoking, and fighting. So I had to change my behaviour, but I was devastated. I simply had nowhere to go. I went to the principal's office. I was accepted in his room, and I just burst out crying. I said, could I please have one more chance? That's all I need, just one more chance. And he gave it to me. He did have to send me home. He said, you'll need to be suspended, but you can come back, but this is your final chance. And I thought to myself, I can't muck this up. But there's one more issue I needed to deal with at home. I had to face my fears. My father was a very violent man, and I knew I was in trouble when I got home. So not only did I have to stop that, I had to stop the whole domestic violence cycle in my home. And I did. I stood up to my fears and I stopped that cycle. And I successfully graduated school. And I had decided when I got back that I was actually going to become friends with people. All the fighting was going to stop. All the social behaviours that weren't acceptable were going to stop, and I was going to be a nice person to everyone. And a funny thing happened. Everyone was nice to me. So when I left school, I then took on a boilermaking apprenticeship. So I learned how to work hard and in the hot sun, and I learned how to work with unions. From there, I went and joined an Aboriginal mission. In fact, there were 5 different Aboriginal tribes at this mission. And I learned what it was like to deal with people that you really didn't understand their culture. And I gained a real love of First Nations people. And it was at that point that I decided my time had come and it was time for me to start a business. I was 22 years old. So as that business failed, and as I brought on a new business, and I partnered with a 20-something, I now decided it was time to try again. 2008 brings me to Tangalooma Island Resort, and I was running the water sports area. So there was me owning 100% of this business, and then a young business partner approached me. He said, I'd like to be a business partner in the parasailing side of the business. I decided to take him on board for the whole business. So now I only own 50% of the business. But a magic thing happened. We used to turn over a small amount and have virtually no profit. But with him on board, we turned over 5 times the amount and made great profits. In fact, we made so many profits, we invested in 8 other business units. We now own 8 other business units there. But we even went further than that. We bought 2 more businesses. So this is how it can work for you. When you bring someone on younger who can work alongside you and you can use your experience, then you can deliver something really magical. So using that same model of industry experience plus a 20-something, we've developed so many more businesses. We now have over 16 businesses. And because I've partnered with 9 different people along the way, we find now that the 20-somethings are working together with the 20-somethings and working with other people with industry experience, and it's now creating a new form of business, a new business model. So I want to demonstrate to you now, we've talked about how a 20-something plus industry experience works. Now I want to talk to you about a 20-something on their own versus somebody with experience. So we operate at the Tangalooma Island Resort where the dolphins come to feed every night. There was a 20-something that owned the snorkeling business who would come down with his wetsuits every night. So people who didn't want to get into the cold water in the middle of winter would put a wetsuit on. And so the wetsuit would protect them from the water. However, when his quad bike broke down, he couldn't bring the wetsuits down anymore. And for a week, the customers were disappointed. They couldn't put the wetsuits on. So the resort came to me and my 20-something partner and they said, would you guys be interested in running wetsuits down to the dolphin feed? We said, sure. However, we made a few changes. Firstly, we didn't want the business to break down, so we didn't use quad bikes. We built ourselves a little hand-push trailer. And the other thing we didn't do is we decided we didn't want to use wetsuits. We wanted to do something a little bit differently. So I'll demonstrate what we did. We use these things. Now, the great thing about these is not only did you have to go and put them on up at the toilets, you could actually put them on in front of people. While you're at the beach, you could just throw these waders on. Whoops. Okay, I've gone on the wrong thing. Here we go. So not only could you just throw the waders on, but people would also be able to feel comfortable. They wouldn't need to get wet. They wouldn't need to basically get out of these things once they've finished, go to the restaurant, go and have a shower. They'd be able to just go about their business and finish their night off in comfort. And the great thing about it was, previously with the wetsuits, the guy only ever turned over $300. And in our first hour, we turned over $1,000. So it was a really interesting way that people worked together in order to gain some business success. So my question is, what is business success? Is it being with I Wake Up Today and showing your products in the Sydney Harbour on 5 of the ships with P&O? Or is it working with Indigenous tribes over the past 15 years and the young people to deliver experiences? Is it dressing up like a unicorn or a reindeer and having fun with your business partners? Is it putting smiles on faces? For me, it's really important. This is one of the things that matters the most. Or is it getting together with your friends and sponsoring someone in Africa, another 20-something, to get medical qualifications? Now, I got a text from Ken last night. There were fires in Kibera, in the slums of Kibera, and the ambulances and the police couldn't get in. So Ken was the only one there with his medical kit. And he alone rescued a lot of people and treated their wounds. Is it joining with your family and having a business whereby you can travel the world and you can have great experiences? Or I like to think of business success in a way that my business partner Brad said to me. And he said, Sharpe, I'll know I'm successful when you come over to the businesses and all you have to do is go stand-up paddleboarding. You see, stand-up paddleboarding is one of my most favourite things in the world to do. And when I think about business success, I think about getting up every day, being happy and having fun. When you have fun, and at the end of the day, when you have satisfaction in your life, that's business success. And I think about the long term of business success. And for me, it is creating win-win situations with your business partners and with those partners that you rely on in business, the larger companies that you work for. So last year, we put 1 million smiles on, we put 500,000 smiles on people's faces. I'm hoping in years to come with my business partners that we'll be able to put 1 million smiles on their faces. So a couple of the things that I've learned is to be generous and to be kind. Now, when we talk about being kind, we also need to be kind to ourselves. To be good business leaders, you need to be happy and healthy, and that's where you need to be kind. You need to build business confidence in your business partner, and you'll learn from each other. You'll learn so much from each other. And I think you need to identify opportunities and take risks in life. And when you take risks, you'll always find solutions. In fact, some of my 20-something business partners say to me, Sharpe, you run so many businesses and you do so many things. Why is it that you deal with stress so well? And I always answer the question the same way. And that is, I ask myself a question. Has there ever been a time in my life when I haven't been able to find a solution to a problem? And the answer is always no. I've always been able to find that solution, and you'll always be able to find that solution. So don't allow stress to overtake your life. And finally, the reason why I believe that having a 20-something partner with somebody with industry experience is a way of building successful business is because I've now noticed that there's been a generational change. My 20-somethings who now have business experience have gone out to find their own 20-somethings to build businesses with.